This is the board today, and before I get into the board though, now that we know that it's set up properly, now you're just gonna get in like my head here. But before we get into the board today, I really wanted to talk about some stuff in regards to etymology and ciphering and the Kabbalah and how the Kabbalah came about. And so we're gonna do a little story reading time again. And just so that you're aware, you know, where the origins of a lot of the modern interpretations of letters and numbers really come from. And also to understand that letters were never connected to numbers in the beginning. This is a major thing that you have to understand, that for the ancient people counting, and it just all depends on which group of ancient people you're referring to. But if you're referring to the indigenous ancient people, of course, their counting was done through sticks, and they still have in many places where they still use a stick counting system. So for them, it was just simply checking off, making the straight line as the indicator of 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can imagine that because numbers is not just a stick, and let's utilize the board here. Because the number, so the indigenous would do this and then sometimes this, like the old school method to count things. And when it came to language and letters and numbers, it was never written down. So then there graduated a system where people were actually just writing the letters, let's say, or writing something as a letter. And then there became entire languages, and of course Arabic was, you know, or the roots of Arabic and Sanskrit, and of course Tamil were the roots to a lot of language systems, but still those language systems never found themselves attached to numbers, and there's a reason why, until much later. Because of course, let's say for instance this is an A, okay? It didn't ever become one until way later on, because this language of numbers was introduced way later on. So this is something that you need to really be aware of. I'm going to try to write bigger here. So the language of numbers, this what we call, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, these particular symbols are a language within themselves. So in an instance, we really shouldn't look at these numbers at times as just numbers, for better lack of words. It's actually a language. And for the beings who know how to read that language, or choose to read or learn in that language, sometimes numbers, okay, can be numbing. Meaning that there becomes an extreme level of having no feeling when you start using the language of numbers. And this is how it manifests in society, as everyone's just a number now. They give you a social security number, then you have a driver's license number, and then a tax ID number, and then an EIN number. So you have all these numbers because to the system that's actually reading you, which is really a computer, it speaks numbers. So now, this is, of course, a very deep revelation for everyone. Let's get into, again, how the numbers came about, like the language of numbers came about. And as I said before, Pythagoras was the key figure in pushing forth this new language called numbers. And what he would do is him and the team and the retinue he was with, the cult that he was with, would go into areas and start attaching the people's language to numbers. Like if they found anything written, they would say, okay, now this aleph means 1 and beth means 2. So this is how more or less a race of people put another GUI or a GUI over the top of other people's language so that they could just read their languages like numbers to find out the hidden number. Okay? The unknown quotient, as they call it. People don't ever really think about all this stuff, like how does it happen? And some of the individuals involved, and Crowley and the Queen and all these different individuals, like what are they really up to? Because obviously they're not into a heavy level of producing expansive universes and planetary systems, because they choose not to educate and activate their supposedly children. And so this is why, you know, we have to see how the system has been basically put on a computer type autopilot, where something that knows how to predict how predictable people are going to act is running things. And it also shows you how to guide yourself into an absolutely organic sphere. So here's what you're dealing with. You have Paracelsus, because I remember I said Pythagoras and those guys that were spreading the numbers as a language. You have Paracelsus, you have Cardinal Nicholas Cassius, you have Jacob Boehm, you have other cardinals, Pope Sixtus, you have Rudolph and Cutworth and Sir Isaac Newton, you have Francis Bacon, of course. And, you know, there's a whole list of others. John Dee, who's the original 007. You have many individuals, and I'm even going to show you in the current times how this keeps going, that are now moving throughout the world attempting to make all cultures submit to numbers. Now, remember, the numbers also come in with money very heavy, so you can see that there was more in their bag of tricks than just this language of numbers and how to what later on became known as not just squaring the circle, but triangulating the circle at times and hexing the circle at times. And this is why. Let me make sure. This is why. Some people are familiar with this term squaring the circle, but the square is not the only tool used to corner the circle. And this is why. Now, in an instance, if we were trying to describe the limitless into this reality, we would have to use this symbol. This is a symbol in itself that should never really be used in the physical reality. It should always really be kept high and holy, for a better lack of words. That's why the word holy, right? You could spell it like this. You could spell it like this. The holy, right? You're never supposed to really put the holy, especially the holiest of holies, inside of the dimension, okay? And that's why inside of this dimension is the holiest of holies. And then, of course, this is that phi base thing going on, okay? But the actual temple, which later on became known as the Temple of Solomon, was to create these phi base systems inside of an actual building for ultimate charging in the holies of holies, which was known as the Black Cube or the Kaaba, okay? So holy, if you were to mention it here as a symbol, you would have to use this one. So now, of course, with the misunderstanding of this one, people have this idea that when they throw something away, it goes nowhere. Because it goes in a hole and it never comes back again. That's not true. When you throw something away, it goes to the garbage dump. So this is why the limitless should always remain outside of the limited. Just remember that. So now, with the holy, what happens is you have several different organizations that were looking to square, triangulate, or whatever you can really imagine with the circle or with the unlimited spirits, okay? And we have about, I guess, 7 here now, so we can go with it. So if one chooses to utilize the type of knowledge that would divide the circle, meaning make the soul divided, okay? They would use this knowledge. This is the knowledge of how to divide the circle one time, okay? This is the knowledge of yin and yang, okay? And then when the circle is then divided twice, it becomes this or this, okay? Now remember, all of these are belief systems, and the reason why I used this one in the middle is because it's like the Mercedes-Benz sign, right? It's just 3, but that means 3 triangles or 3 suns. As we know, the ones who deal with this system are worshiping 3 suns known as Sol, and An. Okay? Now, the next level of this level of division is then this one. Okay? And everyone's seen that symbol before. And the next level of dividing the circle is this one. Okay? That's 5 sides. The next one is this one. That's 6 sides. The next one is this one. That's 7 sides. Okay? And so you can see where all this is really going, because of course, you know, this is, geez, these days, I guess we'll just call it the R sign. And, you know, you see this is what they call Judaism. Okay? And then this, of course, is Elven. Okay? For the elf races. The dead races of fallen angels and giants that are still trapped here on the sphere. Of course, this is anything to do with, actually, this is also an indigenous symbol. It's not a Christian symbol. And that's why the Christian symbol became this. Okay, it's an unbalanced cross. So don't confuse this unbalanced cross with this cross here, because this cross is also used by the Knights Templar. Many different crosses, of course, as you see, are perfect equilateral crosses. And then, of course, this system remains a lot more hidden because it's an older system, but it is a system of the Trinity. So you also see when you go back here to the dualistic system of the yin and the yang, which are some of the Taoists, the most ancient teachings, you see also, oh, okay, well, they're unleashing these systems based on the time we're living in. Because the Taoists and the ancient teachings, of course, everyone knows that stuff is old. You be sitting there like, okay, this is the and you ain't even get thwacked. That's the tradition there. You're never supposed to fall asleep in duality. So then the Trinities in those base systems are actually some of the overseers of the world's Christian system. As you see, the Trinity is still running because it's really Russian Orthodox more so than it is anything else. And then so you see the cross, the ones who start coming through bearing the cross, as they say, in this sign ye shall conquer. Also, I want to let you know that this starts to become the same club after a while. This is real Kabbalah. Kabbalah means cable. That's why that word is here. A cable is a circle. Okay? And also the secret behind this symbol is that every letter, every cable or every language must have a first and last letter. So in English, it's A and Z. In as means unbreakable, and strength in ancient knowledge. Okay? So they make sure that they use something that is unbreakable and has a great deal of strength in order to connect this cable. Okay? And this becomes also the symbol again of Ouroboros, where the serpent's eating his tail. So you see then, after the Christians come through, or the Catholics come through, and the knowledge is passed about the four corners of the earth, because remember, this knowledge, which became known later on and became drawn as a symbol by the Cathars, was really resting with the indigenous people, like the ones like the Aztecs and many of those races who were. This wasn't just Druidic symbols. This is when the Druids finally got the knowledge from the Naga of where the gates were in the world. And this became known as North, East, South, and West. And I showed you yesterday on a chart that there, on the pole, the Alpha Draconis is by the pole, but that's another story. We won't get into that right now. So you can see here basically plainly the division of the souls. And these are wheels that are working within the body, and their combustion or confusion and fighting against one another, even though they're supposed to still have the same Father. Okay? And then the same God. We find that their God is numerically equivalent to the number 26. Okay? The English language happens to have 26 letters. A face of a cube is 26. So this means that the language that we're using is more based on this system here. If you want to pick bing, 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 that's that kind of system with those kind of numbers. Put into 3D, because you have to now compensate for it's in third dimension, so you have to do the extra numbers. And remember, I'm putting this for people who don't really know numbers. We're not going to really get into all the confusing stuff that they keep cooking up for people with these crazy numbers, right? Like now there's Kabbalah, and I don't even need to read it from there. I'll just tell you, Kabbalah became a toy for the royal family. They became incessantly fascinated with attaching numbers to everything to see if they could figure things out. See, a king would be born and he would want to know right away, cast my future, cast it. And then he would, of course, the nervous magician would be like, okay, I'll cast it. And then he'll come back with nothing but, oh, you're going to reign and you're going to win in this battle. And maybe he would put one or two things so it didn't just sound odd. But most of these soothsayers were under the same incessant poison that everyone else was under in the palace, which is why Buddha left the palace. You see what I mean? So in the palace, there's a certain kind of frequency. And of course, the palace, for those who want to play around with etymology today, of course, that's what we're doing. Palace is the phallus. That's where the word comes from. So it was, again, this same, you see the P here, which, of course, every single little boy goes like a little pee-pee. Every single word that generally has to do with a reproductive tool, it starts with P. Just think about it. So now what you see here is you're starting to get a picture of what's going on in the world and why so many people are confused, because the word Babel, we got a little room down here. The word Babel was the word papal and was related to papal, who also became known as the Papal Vu, which the people had already been writing about. Like their scripts got changed to make everyone think the Papal Vu was who they were serving and worshiping. But really, that was the Papal Vu changing that. Because the Papal Vu is the papacy, and they control all Latin countries under Solar Invictus with the demon Rex Mundi. We smite his face. So Babel is actually the deity that you're dealing with, by the way. His name is really Ba-El, okay? So once you can start to track Ba, okay, then you'll start finding out more what's going on the dimension. And this is, of course, where the etymology and ciphering is going to be going into today, is how to track people like Ba, Rock. Okay, I can just spell it this way, okay? Who's Barak? What is the Barak? The Barak is the Kaaba. It's the stone. So you see how these individuals go and fight, well, that's supposed to be the navel of the earth. These people go and start fights with their own people, using their own people. That's really the strategy. The strategy for most of these countries is false flag. They go blow up something and blame it on someone else, and then they get the two warring groups, factions fighting against each other, and then they never realize that once they get on their last leg and weak, then that's when the invader will move in, because the invader is not strong enough to fight you undivided. The invader is of division. You see? This is why you have to be whole, or you'll be here forever. It's not a game anymore. Or you can make it a game, like Tron, it games. It loads you up for the game again. Trust me, I run, like if you notice in the Seal of Marduk, you see Marduk, and I wish I could host that picture, maybe I can. You see Marduk with several of these wheels inside of him, indicating that he has run the wheels of time. Here we go. Actually, I have it here. Let's see. Okay, I'll get that source for you here in a moment. Check it out. But many people have seen this image before, some have not. But basically, when they show the entity Marduk, they show that he's been through several cogs of time. And what this is really about is this is about many of the more graduated gods, as they call themselves, have run through all of those religions that I had there earlier for you and have won the gauntlet. Let's see here. All right. And we're going to go ahead and name this picture Marduk, Time Lord. And this is why Earth is constantly revisited by the energies that already have mastered the system, is because they are the system. Like the energy that runs through when you're connected to the wheels of time in full synchronicity, you have access to all subsequential selves and hyperdimensional selves. So thus God becomes omniscient, meaning that the God who's the human, hopefully beyond that, because this is another thing. God is not a male. Let me show you why. God comes from the Hebrew word yod. Okay? Yod means 10. The definition of 10 in Kabbalistic texts, which are the same people who made this word, God, because a G is a Y, is a I, is a J. Okay? So these, you won't see this one much anymore. These are all the same word. So this was meant to be masculine, obviously. All right? And then this one was feminine, obviously. So if the name is God, how does God become a male? This is why I'm telling you, you have to, when you find one lie, you'll start uncovering a lot of lies within this Christianity and all these different religions. You'll find they've been lying since the beginning. It's the lion. Jah. Lying to the kids. Now what it's time for everyone to do here, because they need to understand a lesson. Trust me, when you're walking out of these dimensions, most of these beings will be waving at you. Bye. Because the reality is that they're all here playing a role. And when you stop allowing everything else to make the decisions for you, and then you start making the decision to actually learn and actually emancipate yourself from the matrix, that's when you earn the right and ability to do that. Some water here. Now notice, on the picture I just uploaded, they're fawning over Marduk. You know, they're down there worshiping, bowing down, but he's in the image of man, meaning that he could be nothing more than a graduated man. But even the kings, Nimrod and all the rest of them, are right down there below worshiping. This is the problem. Because remember, as I've been telling you about for the last 3 days, this combustion, this fighting, worship. Everyone loves this one. I cracked it first in the code of the matrix. No. Never mind. Worship. Okay? And when you're on the warship, fighting against the dark forces because you're the light forces, forget about it. You're getting used. It happens to a lot. It happened to the best. So also, when you ask yourself, oh, no, surely I'm too smart. Look, it's happened to the best. There's a whole book here. People should get this book. I told you before, Sex, Symbols, Sex, and the Stars. You know, Jordan Maxwell really recommended this book, and he's right. I mean, it lays it out pretty definite. So what you're also dealing with, just so you understand again, like, so the royals became incessantly fascinated with this Kabbalah. And this part of Kabbalah, though, the astrological, tell me what I'm supposed to be in the future part. Not necessarily the mathematical, let's see how we can square the circle part. Or basically the pi. Let me show you how pi connects into all this, by the way, for another major mystery. Let me see my notes here. Pi is hidden within the mystery of what is known as the Elohim. And we got on the Elohim a little bit yesterday, and I'm glad we didn't, completely expound on it, because we needed a little bit more time to expound on it, so we have that time today. But the term Elohim is not masculine. It actually is androgynous. Because once you add Ohim, or him to Elohim, it becomes feminine and masculine. Okay? So this is masculine. This is feminine. So Elohim is an androgyne. And this is why, because there's many Elohims going throughout the church, there is a heavy reconversion in the bath, as we were talking about, where the individual it changes sex. And this is the deeper part of what they don't want to talk about in regards to what some of these spirits do. If these spirits happen to be polarized to an opposite angle than the individual. So if they're polarized to the opposite angle of the individual, and that's what allows them to be able to become a fit for that individual, because all of what's happening is basically intercourse, spiritual intercourse, and the person is tanning or bringing in the energy of whatever deity or entity is being evoked within the sanctuary or the temple or the microcosmic universe or the Temple of Solomon. Then now, if the individual is of one sexual preference, they'll switch sexual preferences. And this is why the ones who contact Elohim the most, which is, of course, the Catholic Church, and the individuals that are in there that understand these rights, those old men that are like 50, but they have this homosexual preference, it is because it changes you. That's what they called it, bath. Okay, which is, again, from yesterday, the root to Baphomet. The bath means you were dirty, but now you're clean, which is their whole propaganda. But to be clean, you have to change, which, of course, is Barack Obama's slogan. You get changed, like you're just basically $1. So now, you can see why also dollars, by the way, is a doll, okay? And the R is a pentagram. Okay, so it's saying a pentagram doll, which of course is what the Oscar is. And of course, the actual thing, by the way, for anyone who hasn't been tuning in on this, is standing on a 5-spoke rim and is basically a sigil or a dollar. Okay, so, and an Oscar, of course, is a cross, which that cross is of Templar, which looks like a sword, but only if you turn it in its proper direction. Okay? Behold, I come with the sword. This is just quote unquote Jesus. Okay? Another thing. Jesus comes from the root Jess. Okay? We'll keep this back here because that's the United States, I guess. What happens is Jess, G. You guessed it, yes. Okay, that's the word for yes. So when you say yes, us is a pluralization, meaning that it only increases the word more. So the word is yes-us, yes-us. You see, so it's a complete submission. You're a yes man, basically, as they call it. You won't say no. Okay, you just turn the other cheek. So this is what you're dealing with. This is the games they like to play. This is a game to them now. You're a piece unless you choose to become whole.